Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the XBRLworks for Form 714 on FERC. My name is Scott Tice. I'll be doing the first half of the presentation here, and then Maggie Gardner will be doing the actual show and tell of the product. We also have Paul and Linda, who are part of our account rep folks. So if you wanted to contact them directly, you can as well, or via our sales email, which I'll give at the end. So why don't I go ahead and get started here. First, who are we? What is NovaWorks? Well, we've been a leading provider of compliance solutions for federal regulatory agencies for over 15 years. I myself have been working with EDGAR, the SEC's thing, essentially since its birth, which kind of dates me. I think it was the first time I ever heard of it was like 1984, which is kind of crazy. And have worked on that particular system, actually helped develop the first system, design the first system that was operational. And I've been working as an advocate for filers ever since. That's just been pretty much what I've done my career. We have been collaborating with FERC and with the SEC and with other people, and particularly XBRL, which is the non-governmental organization or NGO that sets the standards and helps support XBRL within the United States. I've been serving as the chair of the Domain Steering Committee for quite a while now. I think it's been like 6 years. And I also now am going to be running a thing called the XBRL Technical Advisory Committee, which is going to help improve the standards and improve XBRL over time, along with additional tools for analytics and for preparing and creating taxonomies and things like that. So XBRLworks is backed by a highly experienced staff. Both Maggie and myself are developers on this. We have a number of other developers, and then we have a whole group of people who do QA, and they all understand it's a hands-on approach. I always say when we're building stuff, it doesn't work until the customer actually goes through the process without any issues. So, going through and just developing and throwing it out there is kind of the way to go. So we're very tight on quality assurance and things like that. So our approach to FERC, we had been traditionally doing desktop applications for the last 15 years, but now over the last 5, we've been doing more cloud apps. The FERC is a full cloud app, and it handles all the XBRL for you behind the scenes. So you never really have to fiddle around with or understand all the subtleties of XBRL and how it works. XBRL is actually a very, very good language for describing data models and describing data that is timeless, because it carries with it all of the authority information, all the stuff that you would need if you were going to look at something 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road and know what those numbers mean and be able to put them in a meaningful model. Which differs a lot from other formats that do not carry that. So you don't need to know all that. It's just a great part of what it is, and XBRLworks takes care of it for you. We also designed it to be a collaborative environment. So on a number of different levels, all those data points and pages and forms and whatnot can be controlled by a project manager, and you can share and have roles and have audit trails to know where data has been changed and who changed it, when it was changed. So there's lots of stuff behind the scenes to help support that as we build that platform. And the database itself that it runs on is organized by the FERC taxonomy. It basically looks like the FERC model for each form. And unfortunately with FERC, of the little more than a half dozen forms that are filed, there's a lot of commonality, but there's a lot of differences as well. So there's a few that are grouped together. But like 714 is pretty much a standalone data model for XBRL. And XBRL will fit into your workflow. We really designed it to kind of work through by talking to people how they were doing things, how they'd like to do things. And so there's a lot of different ways to do stuff. So if you're kind of used to the way you had done it in the past with Fox Pro, or bad as it was a way that you were doing it, it was the devil you knew. You get all the added benefit of being able to copy and paste things and whatnot, and you can still operate that way. So you can also streamline things more. So we're really looking at having us be the optimal last mile solution to convert the data, which is what we do with everything when it comes to government stuff. So the benefits of our approach, it's data that can be shared and managed at several levels. As first I mentioned that it's a collaborative cloud approach. So that means that two people can be looking at the same page, they can look at the same form, and it can be delegated as to what they can and cannot do. Users can also then take data from documents and spreadsheets, and they're easily imported. By copy paste, they're actually just dropping the data onto a special area on the form. You can see a proof of your work at any time, and that doesn't require that your document be finished. So as long as you have the basic information on the identification page, you can work on a page that you're assigned to, page 2.6. You can work on that, improve it, and not have to worry about what other people are doing to get your particular work done. We also do a lot of work with validation. Interestingly enough, XBRL itself is very good at validating things. It's kind of called self-validating, because each field has a data type that it's monetary or it's a date or whatever the case happens to be. So you get that first level, and then there's also the relationships that can be validated. So we go from the very beginning of field level to stuff on the page and to the entire form using the FERC XBRL rules, and you'll see that in the demo. We also easily update things. That happens transparently to you. Every so often you'll get a notification that the system will not be available. I think we're doing an update on Friday. We kind of wanted to do it earlier on in the week, but we determined that it wasn't a good time because a lot of people were working on things, so we can see how many active users are there. And we usually try and do it at a time that's not going to impinge on folks and bring it up. So with all of that going, I'm going to go ahead now and pass the baton over to Maggie, who's going to give you an online demonstration of the software.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Scott. It's my pleasure to be here. Welcome everyone to our demonstration of XBRLworks. I'm Maggie Gardner, one of the developers here at NovaWorks, working with our FERC team to develop a simple solution for preparing and submitting your files to the FERC. XBRLworks is extremely easy to use. It's accessible, and it makes creating the XBRL filings the easiest part of your FERC compliance process, which is why I'm very excited to show you how it works and get you started on preparing your own forms. So I have the software open, which you can find by typing ferc.xbrl.works into your browser. XBRLworks is compatible with any web browser. It runs on Microsoft Azure with automatic scaling and fallback, so it's a very robust system with nearly 100% uptime. I'm going to log in with an account that I've already made. We'll show how to register at the end of the presentation so you can get started right away. There's a 30-day free trial you can claim when you register after this presentation, so I would recommend that everyone who doesn't have an account take advantage of that. Once I log in, XBRLworks will bring me to my dashboard. The dashboard puts commonly used items at a glance to give you an overall picture of your progress with your filings. On the left is a calendar that will have important dates marked. You can see the filing deadline for Form 714 in the important dates area, along with some upcoming federal holidays. If I assign tasks to myself using the XBRLworks task tools, I can add other due dates, which would then appear in this area slightly to the right of the calendar. I'm not going to go into tasks too much during this presentation because I know you all really want to get into how to prepare your Form 714. So let's go ahead and start there. On the dashboard, there are two places to quickly get back to any forms I'm currently working on. You have recent projects, which shows the last 5 projects or forms that I was working on, as well as this area up at the top that has a link to the exact page I was last working on. So you can see here that I was editing this page of my 2021 Form 714. Obviously, I don't want to work on that project since this is a new year, so I'm going to start from scratch. To do that, I'm going to click Projects, and then I click Start a New Project. This opens up a short form where I can enter my project data. First, the project name. This is not filed to the FERC. This is a name I can use to keep track of what my project is. If I have more than one company I need to file Form 714 for, I might put the name of the company in the project name so I know who it belongs to. Then we have the form type. It's very simple. Just select Form 714. I have a basic subscription to XBRLworks, which lets me create 714 and Form 60. Some of you may find that Basic Plus is a better fit for your company because you need to file Form 1 or 1A or Form 3Q. Basic Plus will give you access to those forms as well. Then we have the company identifier. This is the FERC CID. XBRLworks is not limited on how many CIDs you can file for. Some of you may file for 2 or 3 or 10 or even more different entities. The basic subscription will cover you for all of them. It's one low price for all of your filings. All you need to do is change your FERC filing credentials between submitting your filings, which takes a little bit of time, but honestly is much better than buying multiple licenses or subscriptions to a product just for the ability to complete all the filings you need to. Finally, we'll set the period for the filing. XBRLworks will choose a period for us based on what it thinks we are filing. It thinks we want to file for the 2022 calendar year, and that's correct, so we can leave it as is. Finally, the deadline here is a self-imposed deadline, and it's just another tool to keep myself aware that I need to complete my work by a certain date. I'll set this out, and then I'll click Create. Okay, XBRLworks set up my project for me. I have a snapshot of my progress for the filing. Right now, I have 0 completed pages, 1 ongoing page, and 1 not started. That might seem odd, as 714, of course, has more than 1 page, but the status only shows 1, and you can only see page 1.1 down here in the navigation pane. This is because I haven't set what parts I need to file on page 1.1 of the form. Until I tell the software whether I'm a balancing authority or a planning area or both, it's not going to show me what other pages I need to work on just yet. So let's go take a look at that. Navigation is very easy. Just click the link to the page to open it. Once I have the page open, I can click the navigation button to access pages. Like I said, this of course isn't going to show anything right now because I haven't set which parts of the form apply to me just yet. Then I also have buttons up in the toolbar. Back goes back a page, forward to move forward a page, and exit to get back to that project summary or project details page. Page 1.1 has all the identification questions and the certification. Most of these questions are simple fields that I can click on and just type an answer right in the field. So for example, I can click on the code field and enter my identification code. In the name field, I can put my company name, and so on. If I have questions because I'm not sure what a field means, XBRLworks has some help right on the field. Click on the little question mark button that appears when I hover over on the right side of the field, and that will bring up the XBRL information for that field. This here is the extent of your exposure to XBRL when using XBRLworks. This gives you some information about the underlying XBRL element or concept, which includes the label and documentation for the concept. That documentation will help you identify exactly what you need to disclose in this field. I can also see if there are any other pages where this field appears. 714 is a pretty short form, so this information maybe isn't as useful as it is in other forms like Form 1 or 3Q, but it definitely helps if I'm trying to troubleshoot a validation or calculation problem to make sure I'm dealing with the right data. And finally, the inspector can show me the edit history for a field. This helps with an audit trail for the data. You can tell when, and if you have an XBRLworks subscription that supports multiple users, who edited this field in the past. So let's close this and get back to our form. About halfway down this first page is the respondent type field. These are the checkboxes that are going to set up the form for me. So I'm going to check Balancing Authority Area and fill out my area name. I can save at any time while I'm working. Quick keys for save work as well, so if you're used to hitting Control+S, go right ahead to save. Once my page is saved, I'm going to click Exit and get back to my project details page. Now, as you can see, all my pages are visible. XBRLworks knows that I need to complete part 2, so I put all the appropriate pages out for me to work on. Let's take a look at page 2.1. So on this page, I need to list all the generating plants within my balancing authority area. I have data from my company in an Excel workbook, but XBRLworks can take data from a lot of different sources. As we saw on page 1.1, you can of course key the data in manually, but that's pretty time consuming. So I'm going to show you how easily you can copy and paste data into XBRLworks. Before I copy and paste, I need to make sure I have all the rows I need for my data. Right now, there's one data row on the table in XBRLworks, but I need to import data for 10 different generating plants. This Add Multiple button adds more than one row to the table at a time. I could click Add 9 more times and add the rows that way, but the Add Multiple button makes it convenient. If I click Add, I now have my table ready to go. So now I'm going to copy from my spreadsheet. I'm making sure when I copy to exclude any headings that might be on my spreadsheet. And then I just use Control+V to paste in the first cell. The green background shows where my data is being pasted. If I made a mistake, let's say I forgot to copy a column, or maybe my second column is in a different data sheet, let's go ahead and copy that again without column E and paste. Now you can see the green cells are showing exactly the pasted data only. I can review the data and click this check mark to accept it. The red arrow is undo, which you saw me press just a couple seconds ago. And finally, this little paperclip lets me paste into the footnotes for the fields instead. Say I had a row of footnotes I needed to paste in. I can set that up in a spreadsheet and copy and paste right into the footnotes. Let's accept our paste operation. Now let's deal with column E. Watch as I copy a single column from my spreadsheet. All I need to do is place the cursor in the first row and paste. As soon as I click accept, XBRLworks also calculates my total. So I can see here that I have a bit of a rounding issue for my data. My numbers for a few plants go out more decimal places than I actually want to report. So let's fix that. I can click on a cell and remove the repeating decimal using standard keyboard conventions. Shift to select, delete, or backspace to delete. As I do this, the cells that are involved in the calculation are automatically recalculating in the bottom of the total. The yellow background is being added to the total. Yellow stripes, which you don't see on this particular page, are numbers that are subtracted from the total. The green cell shows the total. Also, this little number 1 means that these numbers are involved in only one calculation. On some pages and some forms, you'll see a number of calculations, items that total down a column as well as across the row. So that's what that little number means. It's just to help you see how the numbers relate to each other, and we'll see more about that in just a second. Since I changed my numbers in my column, I can have XBRLworks recalculate my total by clicking the equals button on the total cell. Now everything looks good, and I can move on to my next page. When I hit next, it will save automatically. If I try to navigate away from a page, maybe I clicked home accidentally or something like that, XBRLworks will warn me that I have unsaved changes. So you can hit that save button whenever you need to. XBRLworks is fast for most tables, so you won't have to wait long for the operation to complete. So here's another page that's a good candidate for my copy and paste method of inputting data. I have a sheet prepared with the information. For this one, you can see that column A and column B are already filled out, so I need to make sure I don't include those in my copied data. We're just going to start copying from column C and paste the data right in. You can see on this page that calculations are going across the rows, and there's more than one per row. If we put the cursor in column G, you can see both calculations labeled, and this is where those little 1s and 2s come into play to help you identify each calculation. Okay, let me navigate to my next page. I'm going to fill this page that's coming up the exact same way I filled out page 2.2. I'm going to copy my data from my source document and then paste. I have some negative numbers here. I can input negatives with a minus sign or with parentheses. XBRLworks will translate either for me. There's also some on-screen validation, so I know that if I've mistyped a number, for example, I'm going to delete a comma here. When I leave that cell, it tells me that number isn't valid, so I can go back and fix that. And again, it automatically calculated my totals. I can check those against my own numbers, and they are correct, so that helps me verify that my data integrity is good. As you can see, this is very simple. I don't need to know XBRL. The interface is very user-friendly. I'm going to breeze through data entry. We actually had a client start and finish her first Form 714 filing in just 30 minutes while we were on the phone with her. She called into support because she was worried she wouldn't know what to do and she wasn't sure exactly where to start. And 30 minutes later, her filing was submitted and accepted by the FERC. You can also work on these pages really in any order that you like. We're editing the pages in the order they appear, but you really don't need to do that. If I'm gathering data from different departments and those departments are already at different times, I can start working with the data I have even if it's not yet complete. It's really that easy. Even this page is going to be pretty simple. As I'm sure most of you know, 714 has these large tables to report data to the FERC for every hour of every day of the year. That's 365 or 366 rows and 27 columns when you count the date, the time zone, and all the hours. So for this big table, I'm going to use XBRLworks' import tool. All I need to do is have my data in a CSV format. We picked CSV because a lot of systems can create it. It's a fairly universal format. I'm going to need a CSV file where each line in the file is 1 day's worth of data. Then I can just click the import button here and simply drag my CSV file over and drop it into my gray dialog here and watch it go. Doesn't take long at all. And that was very fast. 365 rows imported in just seconds. Let's take a look now. Now I do need to warn you that the first time you save this page, it's going to be a little slower than we've seen so far with XBRLworks. It unfortunately can't be helped too much because it's a lot of data, and by clicking that save button, you're uploading all at once to the cloud. As it saves, XBRLworks is taking your data, validating it, and putting it into a database to create your XBRL data for you. So sometimes, depending on the system load on both your network and the internet and on XBRLworks' own servers, this can take a minute or two.
It also can be impacted by how fast your computer is. It takes a lot the first time because you're doing tens of thousands of fields that have to be processed. When you edit in subsequent slides, it only does the sections that you change. So it's much, much faster.
That's correct, and we're going to show that now. Once I save it, I can reload the page if I want the next save operation to be faster. XBRLworks is optimized so it doesn't display the whole table at once and will handle the data in chunks to make it easier for you to edit things quickly. If I scroll down, you can see now that it's only showing the 50 rows on the page. For now, we can have it show more if we needed to. This is going to let me edit a number and click save and be done in seconds instead of that first minute that we had to wait for the entire table's worth of data. Also on this page, there's a field for a description. The FERC wants data like this as HTML, so you can have some formatting in it, and it will be nice and readable on their system. If you have HTML already, that's great. You can just copy and paste it in. Even from a browser, it's simple, just copy and paste. The Cleanup Code button will make sure it's 100% ready for the FERC. If you don't have HTML but have Word or some other word processor, you can use that import button. XBRLworks will take Word documents and build the HTML from them. I can upload the file. For this, I don't want to submit this file directly to the FERC. This is just a reference file for my field. Once it's finished uploading, we can hit this Convert to HTML button. It'll take just a second for it to convert the Word document into HTML, and now it's done. This preview button will let me take a look at the rendered field so I know exactly what it will look like on the eForms proof. Okay, we're going to close out of this and hit Save and Next. And just like that, we are done with all of our data entry. So there are a lot of features to help me with my workflow. I can set the status of the pages and lock them once I'm done with my data entry. I can make tasks and attach them to form pages. I can leave comments for my colleagues or for myself on individual fields if I'm missing a data point or if I feel like something needs another look before we submit it. I'm not going to go into all of these features here. If you'd like to learn more about them, please contact us after this presentation and we can show you everything. For now, the last things I want to show you are the validation and proofing tools. Both of these tools are very powerful, and I can use them at any time during my process and as often as I'd like to. Let's start with validate. We just saw the on-screen validation, XBRLworks isn't going to let me save outrageously bad data into the form. So I can't put a word in a column that requires numeric data or put an integer in a column that requires a date, for example. But I still really would like some validation to make sure my data integrity is good. I want to make sure that all my numbers add up and I'm not missing anything that the FERC would require me to report. So on my project, I've already started the validation process. This runs my project through the same validation that the eForms system uses when you submit a filing to it. Anything that comes back as an error in this validate function will prevent my filing from being accepted by the FERC. So as you can see, we do have a few errors in my filing. Some of these aren't surprising because I left a lot of that information blank on the identification and certification page. But this first one is a calculation error. We talked about rounding issues that I had with my data. My spreadsheet has greater precision than the FERC wants, so my calculation is a little bit off because the numbers are being rounded. I can click on that error, and XBRLworks takes me right to the page where the error is. And I can see where the problem total is. Let's just fix this number by deleting the extra decimal places we don't want, recalculate, and save it. Once I've done that, I can click on my little check mark here in the validation log to clear the error. Now I can clear some of these other errors and try validating again. At this point, maybe it would be good to take any questions that we might have about the process or about validating your data, if we have any, Scott.
I don't see any that are on for specifically for validate. I will just add on that one of the reasons it takes a while is unfortunately the tool that does it from FERC ends up reloading the taxonomy every time. So that tends to take a lot of time for it to run, but it's still not that bad. I mean, it only takes a very short period
the
of time to
eForms
do it.
systems runs the exact same validation that XBRLworks does. So if you notice, when you send your file to eForms, it may take it, a few minutes to churn with it and get it to the point where it's accepted it. The nice thing about that is that XBRLworks is running the exact same set of validation rules that eForms does. So if your filing passes XBRLworks validation, you can be pretty confident that it's not going to have any problems.
99.9% chance.
Yeah, it's going to be fine through eForms.
But as we say with the SEC, the same thing with FERC. Test file. It doesn't cost you anything to do a test filing early on in the process, and that'll help iron out any problems. And also, if you've got issues with your CID or anything like that, that's gonna help with that.
All right. So there's one more error here that I forgot. That's telling me right away that I forgot it. So I'm just going to go back and enter it back in. Save it. And then we can back out and validate again. And again, you can validate as often as you need to. And in addition, XBRLworks will keep all of these validation logs with the project. So you can actually walk back and see, oh, I started with, 30 errors and now I'm down to 2, or I saw this error somewhere before. How did I fix it the last time I saw it? Things like that.
One thing to add on to the validation, again, it's local to our server. We had actually one of our customers ask, does it actually file to FERC? But apparently, I'm not familiar with the details of it, they need to file FERC-type forms to some state agency or something like that. So they don't want that data going down to the FERC. But yet, you're getting all the same things that would happen if it goes to the FERC, but it's totally private until you press that submit button.
Right. Okay, so now you can see that we have no more errors, so our validation is complete. But we'd like to get a look at what the data actually looks like that we're going to send down to the eForm system, so let's proof it. I can proof the individual pages of my filing or the entire filing. Proofing from the project details page, like I just did, will proof the entire filing at once. This is going to be an HTML proof that we've made it to look very similar to the way the eForms system renders the forms on when you submit your filing down there. So as we open up our HTML version of our proof, we can see that all of my data is here. And I can print this directly from the browser or to a printer, or I can use the print to PDF function to make a PDF copy to distribute to any reviewers or anybody else who needs to have some eyes on the report before I send it. So as you can see, all of our data that we entered is all right here. There are also several options for proofing. Right now, I sent a command down to just have it create a proof exactly like the eForm system will do it, but you can proof with some other added features that XBRLworks provides to make your workflow easier and more obvious. So this is a setting in our preferences. We can choose in our preferences that we can include comments and page headers and footers, project information, etc. So we're going to turn all of these on here and go ahead and try to proof the project again. We can even choose to print our data in a different font color so that it's really obvious on the finished proof that data stands out from the other content of the proof. In addition,
That's it.
proofs stay on XBRLworks until we delete them or run out of storage. So the basic subscription has about 5 gigabytes of storage, which should keep you for quite some time because 714 is a pretty small form. But as you're working with it, if you find proofs that you don't need, you can, of course, delete the proof. And if you use the workflow tools to move your project to a completed or archived state, the system will automatically delete old proofs for you.
The reason that we have the blue on there, which we have used with SEC documents as well, is it shows you exactly what's being filed. Because when it's being filed to FERC, you're not seeing, this is not what's being filed. What's being filed
That's
is those
correct.
individual facts, those individual data points. So if you scroll down, you'll see the things that are blue. Those are the actual facts. I think if you hover over them, it does pop up with the name of it. So that's
Yes,
the
it does.
responding mailing agency. So
Right.
that's why they're blue like that.
I can use the browser to print this to PDF again or send it as HTML to any reviewers. And if you want to proof without the added features that XBRLworks puts on there, you can, of course, as we just shown, turn all these features off and get the exact eForms proof. So now that we're done looking at the proof, all that's left for me is to submit our filing to the FERC. And that's done right here, back on our project details page. I can submit my project without updating my page statuses if I choose. If I decide tools like that aren't necessary to how I like to work, I can submit right now. If I like moving along my workflow with a checklist, I can take the time to go to the pages and mark them as they progress through my workflow. Doing it either way won't prohibit me from submitting test or live filings to the eForms system. FERC credentials are set in the preferences, so you can go in there and set your eForms login. You can change these as often as you need, and then you just submit, and you're done. It's simple and really fast. Before I hand the reins back to Scott to wrap some things up, I'd like to take one more minute to show everyone how to register for an account. It's really easy, and there's absolutely no obligation to buy. If you do register after this presentation, you can get a free trial of the software and just try it for yourself. We're sure that you're going to love it. To make an account, go to, again, ferc.xbrl.works and click the register button in the upper right-hand corner. All you need is your name, your company name, and an email address to get started. And with that, I'm going to send things back to Scott. I hope you enjoyed the demonstration, and thanks so much for attending.
Okay, thanks, Maggie. If you, just as a side note on the sign up, certain email domains like Gmail and whatnot are gray listed. So if you use one of those, expect a delay because it has to be reviewed by somebody before it's actually approved. Okay, that was really good. So what is our platform? Maggie already talked about the fact that it's on Microsoft Azure. We selected that because we wrote the package in .NET. One of the reasons we use .NET and C# is that it comes with a lot of security stuff built into it, a lot of authentication items built into it, and it turned out to be what we felt was the best platform. We have done additional development. One of our portal platforms runs on Amazon Web Services. So I think we're probably going to move everything over the long run to .NET. So it's also has redundant databases and redundant servers. So your data is on more than one server, and it's also on you're served by more than one server. And in fact, there's a security wall between them when you talk to the primary area where you're seeing all that user interfacing stuff. Everything is actually secure because it goes through another link, another layer, so hackers can't figure that out as to where they're actually going. And so as long as you have internet access, you can go to ferc.xbrl.works and work on your data. So, again, it's ferc.xbrl.works. We have both the single sign-on mode, SSO, and multi-factor. We do a lot of work with security. We do penetration tests on our own. We have third-party folks do a penetration test at least once a year. We usually end up doing 2 because most of the places will give you a 90-day comeback on that and do some more. So there'll be security fixes as needed. That's all driven by industry standard, what's called OWASP, and a couple other things that they have the top 10 and all the different types of vulnerabilities that they test for. The particular vendor we do runs all the automatic stuff, and then they actually have a human come in and try to attack the system. So that's a very valuable method of approaching it. We also, as an organization, have a full SOC report on all of our procedures and things, and we will do your compliance information if you need to have stuff like that filled out for your IT. We'd be happy to do it, and we can provide the SOC report as well. Because again, we're maybe a small company, but we operate everything very procedurally, and from terms of a maturity on software development and security, we're at a very high level. So you can choose the plan that fits best for you. Basic is obviously the simplest thing, and that's really kind of the single user, gives you 5 gigs of storage, which no one's run out of storage yet. We were trying to run some numbers to figure out, how much that is. It's actually a lot. I think you probably go at least 5 years of stuff, and you can turn around and archive your projects. I would recommend downloading your XBRL anyways, because that becomes your actual official thing that you sent over to the FERC. And that can be put into your records then, along with the proof. The Basic Plus gives you more, also lets you get to all the forms. So if you have additional forms in your organization, as we've already mentioned, there's no limitation on the number of CIDs or companies that you file for. So if you happen to be a group that has 4 or 5 different companies that you're filing for, then that's not an issue. If you want to do collaboration, then you go to Premium. That gives you a team leader, and it gives you team members that you can assign roles like review. You can be one that enters data, etc., and that allows you then to control the entire process. 714 is so small that it's, as you can see, just preparing one does not take that long to do. So collaboration really isn't that important. And if you go to the Premium Plus, then you end up with having more. That's just kind of the bigger organizations might need that, where you'd have a lot of different folks looking at the stuff. So let me take a look and see what we have for questions queued up here. Here's one of them about subscriptions, actually a couple about subscriptions. How long does a subscription last? You want to answer that, Maggie?
Sure. Subscriptions are annual. So, and then plus if you do the free trial, you get those free 30 days that first time. So, but they renew every year.
If I pick a particular, like if I start with Basic and then decide I want Plus, is that something I can upgrade, or do I end up at the start all over again?
Absolutely, you can upgrade it. The system will prorate the cost of the higher subscription tier for you based on how much time you have left on the subscription that you're already paid for, and go ahead and upgrade that for you. You'll then get all the features that come with the higher subscription, and all of your data will go with you. You don't ever have to start anything over.
I think there was another one about subscription. Oh, I assume it's credit card, and my company only lets me spend $500. Obviously, that doesn't fit. What can I do there? Do you do invoices or?
Yeah, absolutely. We can generate an invoice. You can just contact our sales team and get that set up with them. We'll generate you an invoice. We can get you started that day with your subscription, and then however your company would like to pay, check or wire transfer, however it works for you, we can absolutely work with you on that.
Okay, looking here. There's a couple that are taxonomy related. What happens when FERC updates the taxonomy?
So far, the FERC has updated its taxonomy about once a year. They actually just did it. And generally what we'll do is we'll go and put the new taxonomy in the software as soon as we can. This last time they put it into public comment for almost 3 months, so we put it in right away so you could, take a look at it. There weren't a whole lot of changes, but it gave you a chance to kind of get a feel for what might have changed. And then when they put the final version out, we will be putting that out on Friday. So we try to do as quick a turnaround as we possibly can to get regulatory changes available for you right when you need them.
Yeah, we would have probably had the final version out. It came out on the 1st or the 4th right away,
Yeah,
except there's problems with the validator at FERC. So we're trying to get that dealt with. So we did the
right.
same problems that happened with them happened with us, and we didn't really want to try and fix their code. So one way or another, it'll be out. The way the taxonomies work is you really should be filing for the year that you're in. So like all the 714s that will be going down here shortly are all going to be 2022.
Right. And the
So
system will pick the taxonomy year based on your reporting year. So you don't ever have to really worry about, well, which taxonomy do I need? XBRLworks will figure that out for you based on your reporting period. And you can always change the taxonomy later if you decide that you need to do that.
and that was actually one of the other questions was how do I know which one to pick? So you've already kind of answered that, but I'll go on to, well, what if I want to change it? What do I do?
You can simply change it from the project details page. There's a change taxonomy function, and that will move as much of the data as it possibly can into a new project with this new taxonomy that you've selected. Just bear in mind that if there were elements in the old taxonomy that are now no longer in the new taxonomy, that data might get dropped. It's not going to be lost because your old project will still be there. Or bear in mind as well, if there are new elements in the new taxonomy that were not in the old one, those will be empty. But yes, you can easily change taxonomies as you need to.
So if they filed with another platform last year, how can they get that data into XBRLworks this year?
So there are a couple of ways you can do that. If you came from Excel, you can simply use the Excel that you used last year and use that same format again. And if it's not exactly structured the way that XBRLworks is structured, you can contact support. We can certainly help you get your workbooks into a format that will help you get your data easily into XBRLworks. Also, you can go onto eForms' website and you can download the XBRL that you submitted last year. I believe, well, at least all of last year's filings are already in XBRL, but even if you want to go back further, you can get XBRL, I think, back 5 years
I
or
think
something
they
now. That's
went to
done.
2018
Yeah,
forward.
yeah, they've
Some of the
changed it all to
2018 stuff's
XBRL.
kind of messy. It's got a lot of
Yeah.
errors in it.
So you
But
can download your last year's filing and you can simply import that into a new project. There's an import tool on the project details page that will import raw XBRL into the project, into the nice user interface. So at that point, you can just deal with the data like we just did in the demo.
and you can push things forward
Correct.
and
Yep.
stuff like that. Um, Looks like there's really just one last question, and how do I know the data I entered on these pages actually is what goes down to the to FERC?
So there are a couple of ways you can be confident that the data you're sending is the data you're looking at. First, you can download the XBRL itself. We didn't really show it during the demo, but there is a Create XBRL tool right on the project toolbar, which will create XBRL for your project, and you can, as you can with proofing and validate, do this as often as you need to. Um, Once you get your XBRL downloaded, you can look at any of the freely available XBRL viewers. A is a pretty common one. You can open your XBRL up in that, take a look at your data there. It'll show you the tags and which tag has what data in it, which context. And so that makes the raw XML look much more human readable. The other thing that might be a little bit easier for people who aren't too familiar with XBRL is to just compare the proof that you generate out of XBRLworks with the proof that gets generated on the eForm system. It's pretty simple to put them side by side and take a look. And because they're both HTML, you could even just use software to compare them and see if the data is exactly what you think it should be.
Yeah, and we're actually going to, we have our own proof platform, let you see the comments and headers and control information, but we're going to be having the a REL-based FERC proof available on our platform as well. So you can just click a button and do that.
Right.
That one you have to prove everything. You can't just pick a page as you can with our proof. Okay, I don't really see anything else there. Let's just kind of wrap up here then. Thanks for spending the time to take a look at our product and to learn more about our 714 solution. And just a reminder, we're doing all the FERC forms that are in XBRL right now. So if you have other forms, we'd be happy to talk to you about those and share you more. 714, aside from the very large tables, tends to be, I think it's the simplest of all of them. If you have questions, call us, 585-424-1700. We're available 9 to 6 Eastern Time on business days. And you can also email sales@novaworks.com. If you do the demo and have a question, technical question, email support@novaworks.com. Sorry, habit of NovaWorks software. When we first started the company, we couldn't get novaworks.com, so we had NovaWorks software. They both work. So that's the easiest way to contact, which brings me to another point. When you have support runs 9 to 6 as well. But if you have something going on that you know you need to get done, let us know, and we'll watch email and answer questions, later in the day, or even on the weekends. We haven't really seen that with FERC that much. We get it with SEC sometimes, and we also have platinum support. A bunch of SEC customers have that. That's a 24-hour deal. You can pick up the phone and enter some stuff, and it'll actually connect you to somebody any time of the day. That no one's bought that for FERC, and it hasn't really been offered that much because in general the FERC forms are a little more laid back than SEC forms, and also they're not really market type forms with respect to trying to raise money and things like that. You can register, as Maggie showed you, and try it for free at FERC.XBRL.works. Don't forget the dot between the XBRL and the works, and play around with it. And as a CEO, if you don't like it, if it's something you didn't like, let us know, because we're always improving our product. It's a customer-driven thing that that's how we basically do stuff, and we want to make sure that, again, that we make it as easy as we possibly can for you. So that concludes the presentation. I don't see anything really outstanding at this point. And I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and I hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.